It's hot in here. Or I'm going through the change. And I thought I'd be finished by now. What, you're on 7-second delay? That's good. How many people here practice some form of what is classically considered energy healing? Ooh, a lot of you. Okay, let's put your hands down for 1 second. With my very beautiful introduction, it makes it sound as if I'm doing something special. And I'm not. Once you interact with this new, broader, more comprehensive spectrum of healing, you will be able to access any and every level of healing that I can. More importantly, you will be able to access any and every level to facilitate healing that any healing practitioner can access on the planet, whether they live in the jungles of Tibet, in the jungles of Brazil, or a mountaintop in Tibet. Now, the ones who live in the jungles of Tibet I want to meet. And you will be able to access this spectrum of healing without any technique. The gift of healing comes when we transcend the techniques. The gift of a technique in its largest comes in its transcendence. That's the secret. That's the secret. Okay? We have a lot of healing techniques out there being practiced. Reiki, Jurei, Jinshin, Qigong, Mahjong, Beijing. Okay. XYZ, 1, 2, 3, and it's all about me. Lots of healing names. We've got the old ones, we've got the new ones, we've got the books du jour. As long as we are utilizing technique, we are bringing in energy healing. Energy is what we've had on the planet in the way of healing, and techniques allow us to access this. Reiki feels different than Qigong. Why? It's a different subset of energy healing. Jurei feels different than Jinshin. It's a different subset of energy healing. So if here lies energy healing, we've been accessing various multiple subsets by technique. Many of us have also been able to naturally access parts of this spectrum. Really, there are many gifts that lie in between the techniques themselves within energy healing. But the researchers tend to feel that we are now able, through the reconnective healing spectrum, to access something broader and more comprehensive than the subsets of energy healing. Broader and more comprehensive than energy healing itself. Yet actually we are accessing a spectrum of energy, light, and information. They said that they feel that this level of healing might be here for the very first time, and I said, how in the world can you make such a sweeping statement such as that? And they said, well, it really only makes sense if you understand two basic concepts. Concept A. How many of us are aware that we're three-dimensional? Give me a clue. Okay. Well, science will tell you that you're wrong. We all were raised with the concept that we are three-dimensional beings. Height, width, and depth. But Einstein has been telling us since the early part of the last century that we are four-dimensional. And formally in the year 2000, science came around to accept this. There's height, width, depth. Who knows the fourth dimension? Time. Height, width, depth, and time. What took so long? Because time didn't look like the others. We could conceptualize height, width, and depth, but we couldn't visualize a concept of time. So it took a while before we were able to get this. It's sort of like, well, it would be like if artists, a couple crazy people ran into a convention of artists and scientists maybe 200 years ago, and they said, guess what, I just found 2 nifty new colors. I think I'll call one ultraviolet and I'll call the other one infrared. And everyone would say, well, you're crazy, get out of here, they can't be colors because we don't see them, and we can see colors. The colors were there. We had to learn how to refract light differently until we were able to recognize them. This is a little similar to the logic used by some of the very straight-laced researchers in DNA. We know that the concept of 12-stranded DNA right now is being looked at by more and more people. The very straight-laced will look under the microscope and say, I only see 2, so there can only be 2. And to them we say, ultraviolet and infrared. Because absence of proof is not proof of absence. Okay? Do not put my name down by that quote. I didn't make that up. And I just can't remember the name of the person who did. But you can find it where I did, which was on Google. Okay. How many people here have read the book, The Reconnection? How many have not? Okay, well, we're going to have a shift in what we're doing today then. We're going to bring you a bit through the background of this work and how it came together. And it would be wonderful if, as I scan this room, I was able to see something, oh, there it is, resembling a clock. Good. Just to make sure I know where I am at times. I was a chiropractor, and somewhere in my 12th year in practice, a few strange things happened. I ended a relationship I thought was going to be the relationship for my lifetime, and I was kind of very emotionally off balance with it, and at the same time we were having problems with the staff in my office. I didn't have the emotional center to do what I thought needed to be done to bring everyone into balance again, so I did what they tell you you're supposed to do in practice management seminars, but trust me, you haven't lived until you've done this one. I let everyone go at once. So I was adjusting the patients, answering the phones, filling out the insurance forms, stamping the envelopes, and chasing the postman. This all lasted for approximately an hour. Quickly, I figured I needed to hire some new staff and some good staff, and I wasn't in the frame of mind to do it myself, so I brought in some professionals. We scheduled all the applicants to come in on one day. I opened the door in the morning, and in they came, tall, short, young, old, experienced, inexperienced, and then finally came this one woman who was both the audible and visual, but specifically audible, incarnation of Fran Drescher's character, the nanny. Everyone immediately huddled behind me and said, whatever you do, do not hire this woman, and I had to have her. So she started on Monday. It was a love-hate relationship immediately. I loved her. The patients hated her. I didn't find out until later. She was doing charming little things, such as borrowing money from them when I wasn't looking. Other little practice builders, such as that. But anyway, one day she says, you know what, Dr. Pearl, you've been under so much stress lately that you need to take a day off and go to the beach, which really meant she wanted to take a day off. She wanted to go to the beach, and she didn't want to spend her own money on gasoline. So we went. So there we were on the beach for a while, and then she wanders off, she wanders back. She said, I found this woman reading cards. You need to get your cards read by her. And I thought, well, gee, I don't really have a problem with maybe the concept of getting my cards read, but I'd like to go to someone who comes with a good, solid recommendation. You know, my brother went, my sister went, she said this would happen on this day, and it did. Not some woman with card table and folding chairs trying to flag you down on your otherwise way to a good time. But she pushed and pushed and pushed in that lovely nanny voice, and so finally I agreed. We went over, the woman said, I've got $20 readings and $10 readings. I said, I'll get the $10 reading, which is precisely what I received. 8. Nothing very memorable, nothing stands out, except at the end she said, being a healer, which I thought she meant being a chiropractor, there's this work that I do and you need to have it done. So she continued, you see, the meridian lines that are on our bodies used to be much more powerful than they are now. This system, because it used to extend off of our bodies, tie into the ley lines that encircle the planet and cross at the areas of the high energy vortex cities and then continue out, tying us into all the other stars and planets. But at a certain point in time, we had become disconnected from this system. The universe continued to evolve at its great and wondrous rate, and we continue to evolve, maybe not quite at that rate, but we've evolved sufficiently to tie back in. And we might either tie back in slowly over generations now, or she could bring in a type of something she called axiotonal lines, which would be like a giant spiritual broadband DSL hookup, you know, tie us right in. And she could do this work. And I thought, well, that sounds kind of interesting. How much money do you want for this? She said $333. And I said, no, thank you, because I could think of lots of things to do with $333, and giving them to some woman on the beach just wasn't on my list. But she pushed and pushed and pushed. Told me how much I needed it. I said, no, thank you. She scribbled something down on a piece of paper and said, here, well, you can read about it in a book called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch. Chapter 317. It's only 8 little pages. Who here has ever seen that book? All right. So, we'll keep going for a minute. I put it in my pocket, planned to pay no attention to it whatsoever, but I kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. So finally I took an extra 10 minutes off of lunch one day, ran into a bookstore feeling that I could quickly skim through those 8 little pages and understand it. Okay. Now, for those of you who've read the book, there are approximately 3 things you cannot do with it. Quickly skim through it, right? Read it, or understand it. Now, outside of that, it's a great book. I'd read a part I didn't understand, I'd get through a part I did, I'd back up to the part I didn't, and then I did, and then I'd go back to the part that I did, but I didn't. It felt like my brain was shifting around in my head. I left, I came back, I tried it again. I finally got them to photocopy that section for me because I wasn't going to spend $45 in a book I couldn't understand 8 pages of. But that didn't work either, so then I went back because I liked holding the book, and after a while I figured with so much time, effort, and energy invested in this whole thing that it might simply be cheaper if I paid the woman her $333 and let her do the work. I haven't told this story for a while, so I'm kind of surprised I remember it all. So I call her up to make the appointment. She explains it's done over 2 visits, 2 days apart. Thursdays were my day off. I scheduled Thursday for day 1. I show up at her place. She places me on a massage table, not unlike this one, dims the lights, puts on the new age tinkly music we've all grown to know and love. Who listens to that stuff? And if you do, you wait for company, they should be subjected to it. Does anyone here walk around humming it? No. All right, that should be your clue. You know, it's just, and where does it come from? Ooh, 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 greatest hits from the Pleiades. So the tinkly bell music's going on, and she's taking her fingertips and tracing these line patterns on my body the whole time. I'm thinking to myself, I cannot believe I pay this woman money to draw lines on my body with her fingertips. And my mind's going da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And suddenly it came to me that, well, I did already pay her, so I might as well let go of the negative chatter and see what could come. So with that little bit of wisdom, I let myself drift off for a while, and about 45 minutes or so later, she touches me gently. She says, keep your eyes closed. Just let a little bit of the light in. It was as if the earth had moved, but she was the only one of the two of us who noticed. Slowly sit up. Slide to the edge of the table. Feel for the ground. I'm thinking, isn't it where I left it? Hold on to me. Don't let too much light in your eyes. Now stamp your feet and get grounded back into your body. So I finished the stamp your feet, get grounded back into my body, thinking, lady, I don't know what you think went on here, but I missed it. Thanked her very much. Left, got in my car, drove home, realizing there was absolutely nothing more ridiculous I could possibly do than to have agreed to come back for part 2 on Sunday. So I get home, nothing unusual happens, go to sleep, turn off the TV, go to sleep. About an hour later, this bright light wakes me up, piercing through my eyes. I opened my eyes to see what it was, and it was nothing seemingly spiritual or metaphysical. It was just the lamp next to my bed had turned itself on. Now, I had had that lamp for a good 10 years, and it hadn't selected any other propitious occasion to self-ignite. But there it was. Pardon me while I open my health drink. I usually get the Dr. Pepper. I know that that's healthier because it says doctor right on the label. You have to have truth in advertising. You just have to. I know everyone's sitting here going, healing? How can healing happen? He's having a Coca-Cola. I'll have a pizza with pepperoni too. Watch. Someone says, aren't you a vegetarian? I said, absolutely. I eat my vegetables in a very compacted form called cows. We are so concerned. The things we do, we confuse many of the things we do with making us more worthy. More worthy. Well, I'm going to give up meat and chicken. Now I'm going to give up the fish. Now I'm going to give up the dairy. Oh, you're still eating dairy? Okay. Macrobiotics is good, but next time I see you and I've talked you into macrobiotics, I'll be on living foods. Okay? But let me show you how spiritual that would have made me. Because when I'm at dinner with you and you order the veal, I will wait until it's sitting in front of you, smelling heavenly, and then tell you about all the horrible things that will do to your system, because I've become very evolved with my diet. And then later on, I might go back to eating according to the design of my teeth and my intestinal tract, which would mean what? Meat. So, these are all various experiences that we have. How many of you are eating a different diet now than the one you were raised on? How many have changed your diet more than once? How about more than twice? Which time were you right? Each and every time. How many of us are following a different religion or a belief system than the one we were born into? How many of us changed it more than once? Which time were we right? It's not the things that we do that make us worthy to be able to bring through the healings. There is nothing we can do to make ourselves worthy. we are worthy already by having been born. These other experiences are the colors that we bring onto the canvas, our contribution to the larger picture, which includes learning how to not make someone else feel wrong when they're bringing in a different color. So anyway, who knows where I was? Light. The light turned itself on. Look at you. You're good. Okay. So the light turned itself on, and I felt as if people were in my home. I'd never had that feeling before. Let's just say it was sufficiently uncomfortable so that I got up with a knife, a can of pepper spray, and my Doberman Pinscher, and went hunting. Does anyone here have a Doberman Pinscher? Okay. They're not the watchdogs you think they are. Oh, no. First you get up, because you want to know what's happening, and they think it's a game. So you're going, shh, shh, hush, hush, it's important. When they realize something's serious, you know where they go? Behind your legs, pushing you down the stairs, right? I was going to put a T-shirt on her that said, "The silverware's over there." So, I walked through the house feeling clearly, knowing that someone's there, and yet not knowing how someone could be there. For a good 20 minutes, I'm looking, and then I finally realized several things. Someone was there, and I could look all night. I'd never find them, so if I didn't go back to sleep, I'd be a wreck for my patients the next day. So I went back to bed. In my own bed, which wasn't too bright, I realized, but there I was. I got up in the morning. Everything seemed normal. It was a normal work day. Saturday was normal Saturday. Sunday, I come back for part 2. I show up at her place. She places me on the table again, dims the lights, puts on the New Age tinkly music, starts tracing the lines on my body. Except this time it's a very different experience. I couldn't lie still. I felt kind of, just not in myself comfortably. I didn't dare move, though, because I paid her all that money. I figured I'd hold on to the table. When she finished the session, something had changed. I experienced a peace, a sense of peace that I'd never before known, on the one hand, and yet on the other hand was more familiar than anything I'd ever known. I remember getting into my car, I remember starting the ignition, I remember the car, and I beginning to drift home, and I don't remember another thing. I don't remember arriving home, I don't remember going to sleep. I don't remember getting up in the morning, I don't remember going into my office. My memory comes back to me. It was almost as if my brain had been like removed and replaced or something. My memory comes back to me at a point where I'm in a conversation. It's like waking up after anesthesia. The world's going on around you and suddenly you're walking into it. And 2 employees are looking at me saying, "What did you do over the weekend? What happened to you? You look so different. You sound so different." And I didn't want to say, "Well, gee, I paid some very charming Jewish gypsy who called me Bubble at $333 to draw lines on my body with their fingertips. Why do you ask?" So I sort of went in to begin to work on the next patient. And I'm sorry, I'm just too warm here. So I went in to work on my next patient. I adjusted the patient, and I said, "Now close your eyes and relax, and allow the adjustment to settle into place." And when he opened his eyes, he looked up at me, and he said, "Who walked into the room while I was lying here on the table?" I said, "No one. Why?" He said, "Who walked into the room?" I said, "No one." He said, "The person who stood at the door." I said, "No one stood there." He said, "I heard them come in." I said, "They didn't come in." He said, "I felt them stand there." I said, "They weren't there." So we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and finally he says, "Okay, but you know when someone doesn't really quite believe you." So I go in to see the next patient. I adjust her. She opens her eyes. She said, "Who walked into the room when I was lying here?" I said, "No one. Why?" She said, "The person who stood at the door." I said, "No one stood at the door." She said, "I heard them there." I said, "They weren't there." Well, this is my 12th year in practice. No one had ever said this to me before, and on this one day, 7 different patients insist that someone's come into the room, stood there, walked around, ran around, and 2 of them actually said it felt as if someone was flying around the ceiling. Now, you would think that this would have gotten my attention. But other people are saying, I can feel your hands before you touch me. I'm going, oh, sure you can, and close your eyes. So they'd close their eyes, and I'd hold my hand and move it around, and they'd tell me, right shoulder, left ankle. So it became a game because it was my office, and I could have whatever games I wanted. Get your own office. And so as I was playing with this, people started first reporting long-term aches and pains leaving. Then my palms blistered a couple of times, and my palm actually bled once. Not like a stigmata, but more like you take a little pin or a needle, you accidentally stick your hand, that little bit of blood that comes out. And people started getting up out of wheelchairs, and vision returning, and hearing coming back, and reporting that their cancers had vanished, and showing me laboratory results. Not all of them, but a lot of them, enough of them so that we knew that something significant was taking place. The patients would call and say, what did you do? And I'd say, nothing, and don't tell anyone, which went over about as big as Nancy Reagan saying no to drugs. So soon people started coming in from everywhere going, I'll have what she had. And as we're playing with this, and as we're fooling around, people are now calling and saying, teach this. And I said, teach it. There's no way to teach it. I mean, no one left me an instruction book. How do you teach this? But more and more people started calling after their sessions saying, when I got home, I walked into my apartment or my house, and my television or stereo or lamp turned itself on, so I turned it off and it turned itself back on again. So I left it on, and 10 minutes later it turned itself back off. I started feeling strange sensations in my hands, so I would hold my hands by someone in my family, and suddenly my grandfather could walk again after the stroke, or my uncle regained the use of his arm, and we started to realize that once you interact with this new level of healing, you begin to be able to access it and carry it. And all you really need is a little time to learn how to get a hold of it proficiently. Healing can't be taught. It's gifted. Like you gift a child in a high chair with an eating utensil. Now, you do spend a little bit of time with that child teaching them that it's not a drumstick and it's not a slingshot. Okay? Little bit of learning. Little bit of learning. When we interact with this, when we give the seminars, we allow you to interact with it. We teach you how to recognize it and find it, and then to discard the technique. To discard the technique. All you need to be able to access any and every level of healing that anyone can on this planet is one weekend, not 27 weekends. I have a second weekend. Well, first of all, the first weekend is kind of interesting because I called it Level 1-2. Why did I call it Level 1-2? Because when I first started teaching it, I knew it would take 2 days, and I figured who in the world would come to me for 2 days? So I figured I'd call Saturday Level 1 and Sunday Level 2. It's one seminar. I'm stuck with the name. Now, when I learned a different way of accessing this work, an original or an earlier way that was done by that woman, what she did with me, I learned how to access that work, and I learned how to bring it to a different level with this new level of healing that's coming through. So I decided to teach the weekend. So I called it Level 3. The thing is, you don't need that. You can do anything and everything from one weekend. Are there a couple other levels you might hear about? Yeah, they're not levels of healing. They're just the time I spend with certain people, teaching them how to be teaching assistants to help in the learning process. It doesn't make you a better practitioner. You don't need more for that. It helps you become a better teacher, because this is about teaching. Because if I do what I'm supposed to do, when I transcend the body, this work will remain here. And that means each and every one of us need to be able to access this. And we access this as once it gets to that level of critical mass, becomes human consciousness. It becomes innately within each one of us. Right now, in the beginning, we'll pick it up from sitting next to someone in a movie theater or on a bus, in a play. We'll pass it on genetically, and soon it won't need to be taught because there's no technique with it. Technique is wonderful. Technique is something that gives you a space in which to learn. But again, mastery comes only once we're able to transcend the technique, once we allow ourselves that. The teacher says, come back and learn more. The master says, move forward and discover your mastery. Training wheels on a bicycle. You put a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old on a bicycle, that child's going to fall. So what do? We give them training wheels. What do the training wheels allow? A safety zone. Tip a little to the left, tip a little to the right, but do it safely and begin to discover your balance. Now, if there's an adult around, that adult will most likely then remove the training wheels so that child can master the bicycle, not just the bicycle with training wheels. But if there's no one around with that vision, then that child might say, I get hurt a whole lot less and stay up a whole lot less with the training wheels. But it's still a little wobbly. So I'll buy a second set of training wheels. Maybe the 24-karat gold set. Those look nice. Now I've got a little different sense. Now I'll get the training wheels that have little beepers, so they go beep, 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 tell you when you're tipping. And then there's the ones who shoot the red beams forward so we can see when we're going. And pretty soon, I'll have mastered riding a bicycle with 12 sets of training wheels, but I will never have mastered the bicycle. Techniques have value. If I'm standing here and I'd like to get there, you could offer me a technique. Step halfway. Step halfway again. Step halfway again. Now, I can continue doing this, and I'll get better and better at this technique, but the one thing I'll never do is get to where I'm going until I transcend the technique and step all the way. The reality is that the technique allows us to get closer and closer and closer. The illusion is that it will ever allow us to get there. The challenge is for us to recognize the illusion, that point to transcend the technique and jump forward. What might happen is we do our technique. Step halfway. We see that we're getting closer after doing it for a while, so we add a second technique. Do a Japanese symbol in the air. Step halfway. Do a Japanese symbol in the air and turn in a clockwise circle, because the clockwise brings in the good energy. Step halfway, do a Japanese symbol in the air, turn in a clockwise circle, and tone from the 5th and the 17th harmonics. Now, if you leave and come back in a year and I'm continuing to do this, I'll be much better at it. And for those of you who stayed, I may have taught you how to do this. And for an extra $500 for a weekend, I can confer the title of teacher or master teacher on you, and you could have taught others. And when the rest of us come back in, there might be 100 of us. Step halfway, do a little symbol, turn in a clockwise circle, and tone, tone. Okay? But none of us will have attained mastery in healing. We will only have mastered techniques. Where's the gift? The gift happens earlier on. Step halfway, experience forward motion. Step halfway again, own forward motion. Now transcend the technique and simply arrive. How can you teach how to transcend technique? You teach how to recognize something. Most of us have moved into a house or an apartment at some point. We probably wrote directions to how to get there along the way. You don't have those directions any longer. They're not sitting in your glove compartment of your car. Because now you can find home from anywhere. That's where the gift is. Recognizing and finding home, not worrying about whether you're doing it right or wrong. So, what's so funny?
I like what you said.
Well, thank you. I like what you said. That's good, because I might say it again. So we carried herself all the way through. And I go back to this woman. I have that experience. I go into the office. People start having healings. They ask to teach this. We don't know how. But somehow or other, what happens is that you pick it up when you interact with it. And we learn how to bring that forward. What is healing? Remembering who we are. When we fall away from optimal health, in essence, it means that we have temporarily forgotten who we are. That we have temporarily forgotten that we are light. I don't mean light in the woo-woo sense. I'm sure most of you have read The Field. Maybe The Intention Experiment. I'm sure you know about the research by Fritz Popp and others. Each one of our cells emits a given level of light, specific to human beings, different than cats and dogs and giraffes. If you take the human cell and put it into a blackened box, you can see this light level. When our health is diminishing, our light is dimming. When our health is coming back up, so is our light. You've heard Lynn talk about this. Our bodies don't heal through chemicals, as you also know. Our bodies heal through energy, light, vibration, frequency. The light allows for the communication to happen so instantaneously throughout the body. What do we need to do to remind ourselves that we are light? Nothing except remind ourselves. Sometimes we live in invested denial. Sometimes we live in a state of invested denial of our own light. What might that sound like or look like? It might look like if you wander into some kind of a New Age gathering of healers and mediums and all sorts of spiritual people in the New Age world, and you overhear a conversation something like this. Well, when I worked on John, his energy was so low that I got a headache. Oh, you know that person, right? And the other one says, well, when I worked on John, his energy was so low that I got a headache and a stomachache. Well, I also had a stomachache with my headache, but I didn't want to tell you because it gave me diarrhea. That's diarrhea. The first one says, yeah, well, me too, but it made me throw up. Well, mine was projectile. Who can get sicker? What is wrong with this picture? Which healer can get sicker? What's wrong with this picture? Why are we doing this? It's an illusion. False evidence appearing real. Fear. It's an illusion. Darkness doesn't exist. If it existed, you could put it in a paper bag and stick it out with the trash. It's only where we have not allowed ourselves to shine yet as light. What do you need to do to not take something on during a healing session? Remind yourself that you are light. And in that conscious moment to remind yourself, you will begin to vibrate at that level again without rings, amulets, protections, sages. Now, you might still find yourself taking something on when you're doing healing sessions. So if you do, I can tell you how you can free yourself from that. I can tell you how. You're just going to have to decide whether or not it's a challenge you're willing to take, because the end result might be that you never take anything on again. And here's how you do it. You will remind yourself that you are light, and you will promise yourself that you will never, the word is never, not 2 weeks, not 2 years, not 20 years for delayed gratification, but never, let anyone know that you've taken something on again. And your feedback system will be cut and die. You will have no longer any reinforcement for taking on the illusion of ill health. And you will now become that light. So how does healing happen person to person? When I do this work, I step into a space where I allow myself to feel. I simply feel. My hand begins to float. I get a sense. And it's ecstasy. And that reminds me of who I am. So what's happening? We are this field. We're not in this field, we are this field. We're denser here, we're lighter in between, we're denser there, we're lighter in between. So as this communication happens within me, my own awareness, consciousness, light raises. There's a communication in this field. And somewhere inside of this person, something goes, I remember this. This is me vibrating healthy. I think I'll do it again. And that person's light rises. And they vibrate at that level of light. When you vibrate at that level of light, nothing denser than light, which includes most health challenges, has anything left to hold on to. And so they simply fall away, if appropriate, on your life path. And anything more complicated than that is designed to sell you something. Period. When you get an aha, when you get a moment, you don't need to come back to learn more. The teacher says, come back for the next level in 5 years, and the next level in 5 more, and the next level in 5 more. The master says, go forward. The teacher's good at student retention. The master wants you out because the master knows there will always be a new student as long as there is truth being taught. For how many people does this make sense? Give me a clue. Good. Now, there are no guarantees or promises. You don't know what will or won't happen with a person. But that doesn't stop us from playing. So I'm going to ask a question, and what I'd like you to do is answer the question that I'm really asking, not the one you'd like me to be asking. Okay? Can you do that? All right, here we go. Going to look for 2 different types of things. First, is there anyone here, let me ask the whole question before you throw your hand up in the air. Who maybe due to long-term arthritis, years, is unable to physically close your hand. Does that fit anyone? Now, I don't want to hear that it's sore in the morning, but you can do it at night. I don't want to hear that it hurts. I don't want to hear that it's only, a centimeter away. I mean, you'd reach down to pick something up, your hand would come up, it would still be there. Does that fit anyone? I don't see any hands raised. Am I missing anybody? What a healthy group. All right. Then we'll move on to something else. Are you sure? I see some people looking like I don't want to raise my hand. Don't come to me during a break. Now's your shot. Okay, here we go. Then, next question. Maybe from surgery or an injury, or it could be arthritis, or it could be a combination. If you were to be a clock. Is there anyone here whose hands would not be able to make it up to noon? Yours? What's it from?
It's a type of arthritis.
Type of arthritis? So show me how high your arms do go. Do them both. I wouldn't do them both like your clock, both at the same time and see how high they go. They both stop there. They both go to that same level? One doesn't go higher than the other?
Right one feels a bit higher than my left.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, let's come back to that. Who else, by the way, now? All right, show me.
Frozen shoulder, right arm won't move more than this.
No. And the left one? Works just fine. Okay, good. Let me see. I'm looking for a few people because I want some variation. How long has that been, by the way? Okay. How long?
Maybe
Give or take.
about 3 years, this one, that one.
3 years and 1 year, okay. Yeah, show me. You broke your left arm.
Yes, the head of the arm.
Shh, 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 shh.
It's very difficult for me to raise my hand.
Okay, so is that how, so if you hold your arm straight out, how high does that go?
It's very painful.
It's very painful. It goes about that high.
And this,
Okay, so there was surgery, there was a pin. No pin.
surgery. No surgery. There is a step between two bones.
All right,
That's why I cannot raise.
so
my
you
hand.
broke the arm, and how long ago was that?
On February this year.
February of this year. You want to play for just 1 minute? Come walk down. Let's look at that and see what happens. God, it's really hot up here. You should be down on the stage. Tell me your name. Miriam. Okay, Miriam. So, face the room. Show them how high that arm goes. About like that, since and you'd broken it, right? All right, don't keep pushing. I don't want you to hurt. Put it down. Come have a seat. Actually, let me change this for a minute. No, there you go. Go ahead, have a seat right there. Can you get up? Great. Now, we don't know what will or won't happen. This has to be okay, right? It has to be okay, because if we are attached to needing to get, it's my other health drink. But sometimes I mix my drinks. I never get a hangover from it. Okay. But if we feel the need, hold your hand right there for me. No, right where I put it. Good. Okay. If we feel the need for a specific healing to come about, that can be our limitation. That could be our attachment. So what I do with this is I bring my hand in until my hand begins to float. I just feel for a sense. And then I pull out just a little bit. Why? Because it helps me feel it better. And then when I do this, you either get a sense of something or you don't.
Very hot.
Very hot.
Yes.
Where?
I feel like a flesh.
You're feeling a lot of flush, like flush from heat? Okay. Stay the same or change?
It's like something is between your hand and my hand and you are pulling it.
It's like something is between her hand and mine and I'm pulling it. Okay. So I come in on one side, I come in the other. Normally I'd stand like this, except that has my back towards you, so I won't.
Tickling.
It's tickling? Okay. And so what happens is my hand begins to float. If I push it down, it bobs back up as if my whole forearm is made of styrofoam. The support doesn't come so much from underneath the hand like you would think, like it's resting on a shelf. It actually feels as if it's coming from the center of my palm. Like, remember when you were a kid and you were left alone for the first time with the vacuum cleaner? So you got to unscrew the attachment and stick the tube against your hand. Your hand was so little it went everywhere the vacuum cleaner went. So that's what it feels like. What is going on inside of your head? You look.
It's not in my head.
It's not in your head.
I feel like a wheel in my hand and it's going up.
You feel a wheel in your hand and it's going up. Okay. Now, tell me about the intensity of it. Is it decreasing or increasing?
It's increasing.
It's increasing. Now, logic would tell us that it would decrease because what we know about energy is that energy gets weaker with distance. I'm not talking about between here and Scotland, but I mean starting in close as you pull out, energy gets weaker. Information doesn't. Information stays the same. Energy becomes weaker. On the quantum field, it may stay the same. But we have yet to discover, even on the quantum field, anything that gets stronger, but this does. We are accessing something more. It becomes stronger as we do this. Now, before I work on your shoulder, okay? Before I work on your shoulder, just take your hands out like that. Before I work on your shoulder, because I couldn't see, I was off to the side, just remind me about how high your arms go. Yeah, that's it. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Just remind me how high they go. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Touch. That's good. That's good.
Amazing. Thank you.
Amazing. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. You there? You good?
Yeah.
You're not going to lose it now, right? No. Now, her arm might turn purple and fall off. But most likely, this healing will be forever. Most likely, this healing will be forever. Now, all we did was laugh and joke and tell stories and spin around to see if you could get a position this way or a position that way. Thank you. Wouldn't it be nice if you were able to facilitate something that simply, that quickly, with that much ease to affect someone's life without worrying about whether you're moving your hands clockwise or counterclockwise? Am I supposed to bring it up now or down now? Am I supposed to shake it off? Spin it around? Am I doing the right percentages from the heavens and the earth? This new, more comprehensive frequency, bandwidth, spectrum of healing allows us to transcend technique and challenges you to transcend your technique. Not only does it allow you to transcend it, but it does not allow you to remain in it. When you add technique back into it, what's going on? You're testing your arm. What's going on? Tell me.
Sorry?
Tell me what's going on.
I was just, well, when you were doing things on her, I was aware of changes.
Just bring your arms up. All right, that's the level they go to right now. Now, guess what? I don't know whether a healing is supposed to take place over there. If I needed that person to have a healing, it would never happen. Because that would be attachment. When these healings first started happening, my patients were coming in to see a chiropractor, and I thought I was one. You can't double-blind a study. Oh, you're fine. A whole lot better than that. Hold your hand here. Later on, when people started coming in from halfway around the world because they heard about the healings, I would often have many people, or I would often have a very nice couple sitting in front of me because the person couldn't travel alone, have a pleasant conversation. Sorry, it's not your best view, is it? Have a pleasant conversation. It's not my best angle, what can I say? With a nice couple, and then the accompanying spouse or friend would go sit out in the reception room, and the person I was left with would turn from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde and say, I just want you to know that I think this is a pile of garbage, and I wouldn't be here if my husband or wife didn't make me come. So I'd say to them, well, maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. So why don't you say to yourself, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. Might be a good idea if you don't fold one arm over the other, go, you can't heal me, you can't heal me. But say, maybe it's garbage, maybe it isn't, but whatever it is, You've already flown to Los Angeles. It's a rare opportunity to lie down and rest your eyes for 30 minutes in the middle of the day, so take it. And these people what's that face you're making? Do it. Just go like that and do it. Look at that face. Okay. Now, before we work on that arm, remind me how that arm goes. Okay. Bring it up. That's where it goes. Okay. We can play with that one later, but only if you're nice. Okay. Now, okay. I didn't do that. I didn't do any of these healings. The healings happened because I came in, I listened, I felt wonderful. We don't know what's going to happen with that other shoulder later. For all we know, he might walk into his closet and reach for something and actually get it. We don't know. But what we do know is that once, or what we usually see, is that once the healing takes place, it's forever. So I came into this space, I allowed myself to feel. It reminded me of who I am, that light, that consciousness. It vibrated through here to the other person. It reminded them and triggered something. And what was appropriate to take place in the way of a healing took place. Now, while I'm talking, we're going to let some of the teaching assistants come down the aisles, and they will let those of you on the aisle rows only, because they can't get in there, have a chance, some of you, to feel this in your hands. So what I want for you to do, well, first of all, I have a good idea. Give me, do I have enough time to do this? If I push, give me 3 people who have never done any kind of healing before and have not read the book, The Reconnection. Keep your hands up. I want to find 3 people. I know kind of what I'm looking for. Just keep your hands up. Okay. Blonde all the way in the back with the blue. Yes, that's you. Don't look behind you. It is you. Go down there. It really is. I promise, I promise, I promise. Let's use you and let's use you. Okay? Quick. Because we only have so much time before they throw us out, and I'm trying to do 12 things at once. Okay. For everyone else, kick off your shoes while we're talking, okay? For everyone here and in the rooms, what I'd like you to do is hold your hands as if you're holding, say, a 4-year-old child by the rib cage. Feel the firmness of your hands, okay? It needs to be strong enough to hold that child. Keep your eyes open. There's nothing that you need to do to add to this. You can't add to anything unless it's less than 100%. There's no room to add then once you're at 100%. Okay, so you hold your hands that way too. The teaching assistants are going to come by and allow you to feel this. They're not going to talk to you about it. They're not going to teach you how to feel it. We don't have the time. They're going to give some of you a chance just to feel it. I'm going to work up here with you 3. So what I want you to do is, let's imagine, think of the magnets that you can stick on your refrigerator, and they might have a little hook that comes out, and you can put notes on it or something. And imagine that the base of that magnet is stitched or sewn right into your hands, and the little hook is coming out of each one, okay? And let's see. And then let's put a big, fat rubber band, like 1/4 of an inch, whatever that translates to in centimeters, who knows, right here and here, and feel it begin to pull. Just use your imagination if you want. Little hook around there and there. So as if you were pulling the rubber band, the more we obviously pull the rubber band, the more we obviously feel the rubber band give a little sense of resistance. So can you just use your imagination and do that? Are you all right with that? You have a sense? Do you have a sense? Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, we're going to start with you. You lie down, shoes off, and lie on your back. You're going to come around here. You're going to come over here. Yep. You just lie on your back with your head down this way. You can put your hands down. You keep your hands there. Keep your eyes open till I tell you. What's your name?
Françoise?
Francoise. And yours?
Carol?
Carol? Pete. Okay. What I want you to do, Carol, is bring your hand down to here. Right here. You keep your eyes open, Francoise. And imagine the base and a hook and the base and a hook attached there and there and there. Big fat rubber band that way and that way. You're going to come over here. You are both going to keep your eyes on her eyes the whole time, whether I'm talking to you or touching or doing anything, you'll watch her eyes, okay? Good. Bring your elbows out just a little. I'm going to teach you how to begin to feel something. Okay? Close your eyes, Francoise. Now let this hand bounce just a little. There you go. That's good. Tell the room what you're seeing with her eyes.
They're flickering. And flickering.
Okay, now, Carol, get this hand strong like that and that. And begin to pull that rubber band just with this hand. Feel it pull. Good. Can you see how it's becoming stronger? Do you see it getting stronger? Okay, good. Okay. That's the reason for the microphone, so you can see that. Now, Francoise, do you feel your eyes moving?
Yes.
Okay. Will you stop your eyes from moving for a second?
I can't.
You can't? Why not? They're your eyes. You don't know? Sorry. Okay, good. Thanks. Notice how she's becoming all red through this area right now, too. Perfect. Okay. You're up. You're standing here. You're lying down. You're over here. 1, 2, 3. What's happening right now is that we're beginning to recognize something. Keep your eyes open, Carol, till I tell you. And hands there. Again, hook, rubber band, pull. I know we can't see this from here, but we're going to talk about it in a minute. It's going to make a point in a second, and I'm going to try to make it larger. Close your eyes now. And pull. Notice that now that we've been working in the space, there's so much going on that Pete's arm is shaking with it. Can you see her eyes moving? Mm-hmm. Good. Tell the room.
Yes.
That's the reason for microphones. Hold them right there. Now you keep watching her eyes. Step back just a little, Pete. Step back. That's good. Hold that spot. Now pull. Notice that as Pete moves his hands, the intensities of her eyes change. Now Pete, bring his hand up, just this one. See, that's different. Bring it back down. There. See that spot? Now notice what you feel right there. Stay right on that spot. Now it's increasing her eyes and making her swallowing increase. You recognize? Can you recognize that when you move to a different area, you act, or a different kind of a movement? Like right now, look what he learned how to do. Look how he learned how to make them flutter like that. You see how he found that spot right there? Look how instantaneous this is. All you have to do is interact with it and begin to carry it. Let's do one last shift, and we'll see if we show you something different or not. Come stand up. Okay? Everyone go wherever you weren't. I don't have to remember this stuff. They all know what they didn't do yet. Scoot down. Keep your eyes open till I tell you. Bring your hands right here. Elbow out. 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 Good. You can't help but bring this through once you interact with it. Close your eyes, Pete. There we go. Tell them what you're saying. You need to have the mic get all the way up your mouth. Good. Okay. Now, watch how, well, let's see if it starts to happen. Pull out. Can you see now as he pulls out how his head is rocking? Yeah. Good. Pull a little further. You're going to do something different. You're going to come over here. Come on. That's good. Bring this hand down. Just this one. Forget this. Bring this hand down. Find a spot. Watch his eyes. Start to pull. All right. Now it's bringing a tear out from his left eye. Can you see it? Walk over here. Pull a little further. Okay. Now this is not, can you see the tear? No, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. That's why you have the microphone. Okay. Pete, stop your eyes from moving for a second. No, I mean stop them from moving. Pete, stop your eyes from moving. Can't do it. Good. Okay, they're getting warm. Okay, thanks. Let's all stop. I'm going to tell you what we just learned here, strangely, even though you couldn't see. Alrighty? Thank you all for coming down. Hop back up. What we're learning is this. The three of them were each able to recognize when they brought their hand in somewhere, they had an effect. When they moved it, the effect changed. When they went back, it went back again, or they went to another space, they found something else. Suddenly they found it. It's like recognizing that if you push something to the left, it goes left. If you push it to the right, it goes right. If you move it down, if you bring it up. And you know what? Once you recognize that, you can't know it any better if you study it for 40 years. Healing is not about knowledge. It's about knowingness. It's about transcending knowledge. Knowledge, facts, data, knowledge, steps are techniques along the way to help us step into knowingness. Skip that part. Step into knowingness. There are usually 3 take-homes I try to give everyone. I'm going to skip the first 2 because I only have 6 minutes left and go straight to the juicy one. Well, I'll touch on the first 2. You can't take credit for the healings. Everyone knows this, but not everyone talks about why. You can't take credit for the healings because when you start to take credit for the healings, you feel responsible if one arm works and one arm doesn't. And you can't feel responsible for that because it is your place to step into the situation and be that light. It is theirs to respond in the most appropriate fashion according to their life course. 2, if you can string together the words, I don't know, again and again and again until you get comfortable with it, it will allow you to discover the universe. We'll try and talk about that more tomorrow because we don't have time now. But 3, the biggest thing is, let's start to learn how to recognize the difference between fear and love. We are spoon-fed fear disguised as love. Loving people, happy people, wonderful things, and people making lots of money and selling you this, that, and the other, and making themselves feel good in the process, and it all sounds great. So here's my experience. Now, some of you might say, well, gee, don't tell this story. It's making fun of healing techniques. Leave that part out, leave that part out, leave that part out. I could, but then I'd be, let me think of the word, lying. So, if you modify truth, you modify it from truth. So recognize that a few of you will feel your toes stepped on, and at most everyone who's laughing will find that they're being freed by it. I will tell the truth of the story, and the light will go where it's supposed to go. So this is what happened. I'm in my office. I leave on a Friday thinking I'm a chiropractor. I come back in on a Monday, I'm something else. Now, my parents have always told me I was something else, but this wasn't what they meant. People's feet are moving and their fingers are moving. They're getting up out of wheelchairs and having all these healings, and I don't know what's going on. And they're losing consciousness, and they're speaking phrases, because there was a 3-month period where they spoke 6 phrases. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And I don't know what's happening. I figured someone should know who would know. Well, healers would know. So where do you find the healers? Well, they advertise in the back of all those health magazines. Come to me, I'm Charlie Chandler and Larry Lightworker, and, Rudolph rain dropping on you, and blah, 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 whatever it is. So come to me, come to me, come to me. So I figured, fine. I flipped through and I decided to call the ones whose photographs made them look the most sane. Both of them. So I called the first person. I said, this is what's happening. What do you think? He said, come over and show me. I'll have some friends. So I go over. I show him on his friends. I said, what do you think? He said, well, you're using protection, aren't you? And I thought, well, that's a little personal. What do you mean? He said, you have to use protection. I said, what do you mean? He said, just protect yourself. I said, from what? He said, nothing really, but protect yourself. I said, all right, I'm frightened now from something I didn't know I was afraid of before I went. What should I do? Call in the presence of Mother, Father, God. Now I'm relieved from the fear that I didn't know I had before I showed up. So I go back to my office. I'm ready to begin the work. And I figure I got to call in a Mother, Father, God. I'm not sure what a Mother, Father, God looks like. So to play it safe, I'll do a Mother, God, and a Father, God. And they're both gods. I'll make them real big. So I'm doing the healing sessions, but the session seems to be not quite as big as the others were. So I flipped through the magazine. I decided to call someone else. They say, come over and show me. So I go over and show them. I said, what do you think? They said, you're using protection, aren't you? And I said, of course. I'm calling in Mother, Father, God. They said, what about the archangels? Who knew? So there's Michael, Gabriel, Ariel, Raphael. I've got to put the archangels right where Michael goes on the right. They all have spots, right? Excuse me, Mother, Father, God. Could you move a little bit? Because I need an archangel over there. And now I'm doing the healing sessions. So, but it's still not real big. So I go to someone else. They say, call in Jesus. So I go to someone else. They say, call in Sananda. I said, who's Sananda? They said, it's the star name for Jesus. I said, I already have Jesus. They said, you need them both. So pretty soon I've got this list of names, so many names and entities I'm calling in the room I can hardly fit. I go somewhere else, get ready to write a new name down. This one says, you're saying a prayer, aren't you? I said, no, which one should I say? They said, the 23rd Psalm, which is no short little ditty. But meanwhile, nothing's working. So finally I get sent to this person in Santa Monica who has this big following. He's supposed to know all the answers. I show him what's going on. He looks at me. He says, you're shaking your hands off during the sessions, aren't you? And I thought, well, no, they're still here. What do you mean? He said, you have to shake them off. I said, but what do you mean? He said, shake them off. I said, but what do you mean? He said, shake them off. I went, like this? He went, oh, not towards me. You've got to shake them off into a bowl of water because the water will catch the negative energy, but it could escape. So you need to put salt in there because the salt will break it up. It should be sea salt, medium grade, but kosher will do. You go up and down the body 3 times, carefully shaking the negative energy off into the bowl, but you keep a bottle of alcohol by you in case you get any onto yourself. You can use that bowl for up to 3 different people. Then it has to be changed. Oh, but you can't change it. Someone else has to. So he sends 3 people over to sit in my room and count. Anytime I use the room for the 3rd time, one of them picks up the dirty bowl of salt water to clean it out. One of them brings the new fresh salt water bowl thing. They dance around each other with the clean and dirty bowl of salt water. If you don't think that made my patients uncomfortable, you have another thing coming. So here I am one day walking into the healing room. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Get off of Michael's wing. And now as I pass through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Speaking of all the days of my life, mine are becoming boring. I used to have lots of fun, and all I do is count to 3. And as I look down, I swear, I saw that water ripple. I'm going, no way. So I tried it again, and it rippled. So I tried a high one and a low one under my leg. This was the first time I was having fun in months. So I figured, but the session needed to end, so I thought, all right, I'll do the grand finale, scrape up all the negative energy from the legs and the arms and the torso, and I'll shake it off into the water, and I went like that, and I popped this knuckle, which turned purple for 2 years. Not because of the negative energy, but because of the spiritual bullshit. So I threw out the water bowls, I threw out the people dumping them, I stopped with all the protections, because what happens every time we protect ourselves? What do we bring into the equation? Fear. You start off your day putting on your protective necklace. Fear. We protect ourselves in the white flame, we feel wonderful, until what? We find out there's a purple one. Oh no, wait. There's a gold one. Should that go on the outside because it's stronger? And while we're in the flame, feeling good, we make sure we move our hands in a clockwise circle, because counterclockwise brings in a different kind of energy you might not want. Everyone point to the ceiling. Point. Point. Don't make me walk up there. Point. Draw a giant clockwise circle on the ceiling. Real big. Real big. Whole thing. Real big. All right, now start to bring it down to the level of your forehead. Real big. Big clockwise to your nose, your chin, your chest, your navel. Look down. What direction is your finger moving in? It's counterclockwise. Ha-ha. The whole thing's an illusion. It's only which way the energy comes in from. So, if there's something you're afraid to do, for God's sakes, do it with wisdom. Don't jump off of a 40-story building. But if you're coming to the healing seminar this weekend and you walk out of your hotel room and you go, oh my God, I'm wearing too much black, don't run upstairs to put on your healing colors. Go back upstairs and put on all black, and don't cheat. Don't put on purple underwear. The worst thing that can happen is you'll die. And then you'll be all right anyhow. If not, you'll have just let go of 1,001 other fears. Find one thing you're afraid to do each week, one fear, and do it. Start off easy, step on the crack in the sidewalk. Your mother can't run that quickly with a broken back anyway. By the end of the year, there'll be nothing left of you but light, but that love, but that essence. And you as that light will walk in, and healings will just happen. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's been my pleasure.